You know, considering how long the Showa era has gone, I'm honestly shocked that we're more than halfway through the second era. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla II is the fifth film in the Heisei Godzilla era, and just like with the last two movies, it reintroduces one of the most iconic Godzilla monsters, or two, I should say. Obviously, it reintroduces Mechagodzilla, but it also reintroduces Rodin. So, of all the returning monsters in the second era of Godzilla movies, Toho was smart enough to bring in the top five: Godzilla, Rodin, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Mechagodzilla. But anyway, the movie opens up with the Self-Defense Force salvaging Mecha King Ghidorah from the bottom of the ocean after his fight with Godzilla 2 movies ago. There's a division of the Japanese Self-Defense Force called G-Force, which is specifically created to fight off against Godzilla. They've developed this weapon called Garuda, which is pretty much a lesser Super X. So using all the information they salvaged from Mecha King Ghidorah, they build their own fighting machine and base it off Godzilla, and they call it Mechagodzilla. So Mechagodzilla is reintroduced in this series, but the roles are reversed. Whereas before, he was pretty much an alien war machine that was designed to take out Godzilla, this one is designed to defend the nation from Godzilla. I mean, they could have made it anything, but I guess the reason to base it off Godzilla is to confuse Godzilla, to strike fear in Godzilla, even though this Mechagodzilla looks a little goofy in terms of the face. I'm probably thinking about this too much. Meanwhile, a group of scientists head off to this island for scientific purposes, and they come across this egg that they decide to take back to the mainland. During their time on that island, they are attacked by a giant pteranodon called Rodin. Suddenly, Godzilla appears at the island. The two monsters fight each other briefly, with Godzilla nearly killing Rodin. And then when the scientists head to Kyoto, they figure that the egg houses a baby pteranodon, which is why Rodin came in and pretty much attacked their campsite. But the egg hatches, and it turns out it's not a pteranodon, but a baby Godzillasaurus. All of a sudden, Godzilla appears in the mainland, headed towards where the baby is. And this gives G-Force the perfect opportunity to launch Mechagodzilla, who actually puts up a big fight against Godzilla, but things go wrong. Mechagodzilla is defeated, but somehow through telekinetic abilities, the baby tells Godzilla to leave the mainland. It's weird. But then G-Force uses baby Godzilla to try to plan out an attack that Mechagodzilla can utilize to finally kill Godzilla and rid the nation of the big G. Now, in yesterday's review for Godzilla vs. Mothra, I said one of the main reasons why I think this is one of the better movies over the last one is because, once again, the story specifically revolves around Godzilla. Godzilla's opponent is Mechagodzilla, obviously, but this also introduces a baby Godzilla, and because of that, Godzilla actually has sort of a motivation to come to Japan and start wrecking shit, because he's simply trying to find the baby. Apparently, they're able to communicate with each other telepathically. It's strange, but at least you have some sort of reasoning for Godzilla to come to Japan. It's obviously got a lot of the great action that you'd expect from guys in suits and miniatures, although this is a point in the series where the special effects are really starting to show. There's a lot of shots with Rodin and Mechagodzilla flying, where you can obviously see the strings, and I'm sorry, Mechagodzilla's flight mode in this movie, I don't know, maybe it's the design, but it just looks ridiculous. There was something about the Showa era Mechagodzilla flying that looked cool. I mean, probably because it was the 70s. But for some reason, this Mechagodzilla in 1993 just doesn't look good when he's flying. And in terms of Mechagodzilla, I do like how this time he's a weapon built to defend Japan against Godzilla, and there are points where he actually looks like he's made of metal instead of that 70s space look. But that Mechagodzilla actually looked menacing. It looked evil and mean and intimidating, which, granted, this Mechagodzilla here is not evil, but there's nothing about the face that looks intimidating. I remember being obsessed with this design of Mechagodzilla even long before I saw the movies, because I just like the newest thing. And then obviously another Mechagodzilla would come around, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So as a kid, I always liked this Mechagodzilla, even without seeing the movies, but if I had to compare the first two Mechagodzillas, I prefer the 70s one. Now, in terms of Rodin, Rodin looks vastly different than he did in the Showa era. One thing, he's smaller, which I don't think that's actually accurate because Godzilla is 100 meters in this movie as opposed to 50 meters in the Showa era. So we could probably assume that Rodan is 50 meters as well because he is smaller than Godzilla, but you have to take into account that Godzilla's bigger than he was before. And because of that, there's no actual suit actor for Rodan, so it's just a prop and an animatronic whenever he's on the ground. And they developed some new twists with Rodan. When he transforms into Fire Rodan, he has red skin. He can shoot uranium beams from his mouth, which that's what the Atari games say, but it's pretty much atomic breath just like Godzilla. I do like the design of Rodan overall. It's a good way to update this creature for the 90s, but you still get the spirit of Rodan whenever you see it. And plus the Rodan theme that Akira Ifukube modified for Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster comes back here. So just like with Godzilla's theme, you gotta have Rodan's theme. And speaking of Akira Ifukube's score, this is the first score since he came out of retirement where he actually is allowed to come up with new original themes. Obviously Mechagodzilla's theme has to be different because he's not an alien war machine, so it can't sound menacing. The G-Force theme is really good, so these new themes are very much welcome, and it's good to see Ifukube bring in some more original themes. Sort of like when you watch a new Star Wars movie, John Williams will always bring back older themes, but he'll also create brand new themes to keep the movies a little fresh. Now, in terms of Baby Godzilla, I actually don't mind this design overall because it looks more reptilian. I mean, it looks a little goofy because when you look at Baby Godzilla, he looks drunk as shit, but he's not annoying. He's just a small baby dinosaur. He acts very animalistic. Because Baby Godzilla is as tall as a human, this allows more articulate animatronics within the head, so it feels a little more lifelike when interacting among the humans compared to Godzilla, Rodan, and Mechagodzilla. Now, when it comes to the characters, they're pretty bland as well. Nothing really to say about them. Well, you know what? There's actually two characters that stick out in this movie. One is your main protagonist, who was a pilot for their original super weapon, Garuda, and then is transferred over to the Mechagodzilla crew. His big thing that sticks out is that he is obsessed with pteranodons. Like, he has pteranodon shirts, he has a hat, I think he has a backpack, he builds a flying pteranodon scooter? I don't know what exactly it is, but it's just one of these things where if you take every movie reviewer on YouTube, take their big obsession, one thing that we all obsess over, and then you look at this dude in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, all of a sudden we look damn normal by comparison. This guy is obsessed with pteranodons so much that you expect Homer Simpson to pull up in his car and go, "Nerd!" Now, the other character that sticks out in this movie is Mickey, who, thank God, has something to do, because in the past few movies, she has just been completely useless. She was first introduced in Godzilla vs. Biollante, where her character had potential. In Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, she doesn't really do a whole lot. And just like with Godzilla in Godzilla vs. Mothra, she has no reason to be in that movie at all. And here, she actually plays a much bigger role, and she actually gets something that represents character development. Because of her time spent with the baby Godzilla, she starts to gain more of an appreciation for Godzilla, and starts moving away from wanting to destroy Godzilla to possibly preserving him. And this angle would be played upon further in tomorrow's movie. So I actually do like that Mickey actually gets some sort of character development. The one reoccurring character throughout this entire second series is finally utilized. Now, one thing that just really irritated the hell out of me, and it might be a nitpick for some, but if you're a pilot for Mechagodzilla in this series, why do you have to learn martial arts? Why do you have to learn jujitsu or karate? When our main character is training to become a Mechagodzilla pilot, you have these pointless scenes of martial arts where he's getting his ass kicked, and I could understand if Mechagodzilla was being controlled as if he was a Jaeger in Pacific Rim, because they'd have to be drift compatible in order to control something as big as Mechagodzilla. But no, they're just sitting in a chair, pushing buttons, giving orders, and it's a crew of 5 people. And plus, like, what is martial arts going to do against Godzilla anyway? You try to go in there with a black belt up against Godzilla, it's just going to end up like that animated short Bambi Meets Godzilla, where you're just going to get stomped. That's a stupid little element, but I wonder if Guillermo del Toro was somewhat inspired by this particular Godzilla movie when it came to Pacific Rim. Because when going over the big plan in the end to try to kill Godzilla, G-Force analyzes baby Godzilla and finds out that he has a secondary brain in his tail, and the whole martial arts thing when piloting Mechagodzilla is utilized a lot better in Pacific Rim because, again, you gotta learn if you're drift compatible. But with the secondary brain, I don't know if this was the first giant monster movie to do that, but I wonder if Guillermo del Toro was heavily inspired by elements in this movie and kind of perfected them in Pacific Rim. That would be interesting to find out. If I ever met Guillermo del Toro in person, I'd love to ask him that. Now I'll close this review with my rating and the last issue that I have, which actually is a reason why I'm giving it the rating that I'm giving it. I think it's a good movie. It's not a great movie by any means, but as the movie starts out and it's going along, I originally thought, yeah, this is a pretty great Godzilla movie, much better than the last one. Except when they talk English. I know I've said in past reviews that whenever an English-speaking actor is in the movie, or whenever the Japanese actors speak English, they automatically become the worst actors imaginable. Well, they speak English a lot in this movie. When Mechagodzilla is fighting Godzilla, we occasionally cut to the crew inside Mechagodzilla, and they're all Japanese pilots, except for one blonde American girl, and they're all speaking English to each other, which is the ultimate reason why I say good but not great and not worth seeing in your lifetime. Because, again, they speak English a lot, and it's just so bad. It just decreases the movie so much. But again, it's a very entertaining Godzilla movie. Its plot is once again centered on Godzilla, and I think it's a lot better than the last movie that came out. So yeah, it's good, but it's not great. And that's my review for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Now, with the last movie where I didn't understand why people liked it as much as they did, with tomorrow's movie, I'm confused as to why people dislike it as much as they do. And that's Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. So tomorrow's going to be a very interesting review, and I especially can't wait to hear the feedback for that one. But until tomorrow, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.